Do you think America's two-party system has become dysfunctional? if you if you do, then you're in the right place. Time for a little coffee with Art. My name's Art Rude, and I wrote this book. I hope you'll consider it if you haven't read it. It's Political Cocaine: How America Got Hooked on the Two-Party System and How to Intervene. And I started when I was 25, and I finished the book when I was 65. So 40 years of thought and preparation went into this book because the political system is not working very well at all, and the two-party system has become trench warfare. And so let's talk about ending the trench. So I'm going to tell the story. I got to get my iPad going here. Of how I wrote the book in part, and the interesting parts. I knew that there was no mention of political parties in the Constitution, and that really baffled me. Because if we're supposed to be a government of the people, my thought was, even way back in my 20s, is who authorized these jokers to be running our government for us? Nothing in the Constitution. Then I also learned, about the same time, that George Washington sternly warned against the formation of political parties in his farewell address. And now think about this. This is at the end of his second term in office. He had led the revolutionary troops through unbelievable bad circumstances and against the greatest army and navy in the world. And somehow he won. Then they elected him president unanimously. There were no political parties at the start. I know that many defenders of the two-party system will tell you there were. Well, they're lying to you. And here's the first piece of proof right here. Washington's farewell address, so this is now after 8 years of being president of the United States of America, and he warned against the formation of political parties. He said, and this is in the section about political parties. He said, however, combinations or associations of the above description may now and then answer popular ends, they are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government. That's in 1796. The Constitution was 1787. So obviously we did not have political parties at the start. The system was designed to run without them. Now I paused there. I used to do that when I was teaching because I'd like you to think about that. You know, political parties have always been around when I grew up and when you grew up, when anybody of this period grew up for a long time. So we've kind of assumed that they have authority, but in reality, they have none. So why do we allow it to continue? Well, that's the discussion point that I'd like you to carry with you. I've always enjoyed a good discussion, but what happens is, as soon as the polar addicted, be they Demorat or Republican, when they take over the conversation, it turns immediately into trench warfare. They simply shoot back and forth. They do not listen to think there's any value with the other point of view. No, they listen only to respond so they can fire back. It's a totally counterproductive system, and we need to talk about changing it. So that's the discussion. If you look in the book, you'll find out there's several things that I suggest, and we'll talk about them in more detail as we go. But at this step, it's very important that people understand that political parties essentially have no power other than what we've permitted them to have while we were asleep at the wheel. What I mean by that is, I talk in the book about what I call the iron irony. And that is, when people have sufficient freedom to govern themselves, they also have sufficient freedom to not give a crap. Think. When you have sufficient freedom to govern yourself, you have sufficient freedom to not care. And that's what's happened. The system was meant to run with concerned citizens giving of their public service. Instead, the political parties have given us professional politicians. I think it's time we take it back. All right. I hope I've given you a little thought for discussion, and I hope you can have a fine discussion today. I know that every day is a gift. That's why they call it the present. So I hope you can unwrap your present with somebody special. If you're watching on YouTube, or I hope you go to Political Reform with Art Root on Facebook, if that's and like it, because I'm not going to post these after next week on my personal page. So I really hope you can have the discussion and encourage the discussion. Have a great day, everybody.